an important feature of today's music scene, whether we like it or not, is the international competition circuit. And so I think it's probably worth saying a few words about it, especially as one whose thinking about the matter has changed substantially um, over recent years. So perhaps to start, I should say that if you're considering a career as a full-time soloist, or if you're in an ensemble, say a string quartet or whatnot, and you want the the full-time activity of that of the members of that group to be this ensemble's performances. If you're in a quartet and you want your full-time gig to be performing with that quartet, then I think you need an agent or manager. Because in my experience, things like concerto solos and appearances at major concert series, or at even concert series that pay enough to make the appearance worthwhile. Um, Appearance in those sorts of venues are negotiated between the administrators of those organizations and the agents representing artists who might then perform in those venues. And if you don't have a manager or agent and are just promoting yourself with, say, press kits, emails, letters, it's likely that you will receive fewer any responses. Management really is quite essential, I think, for obtaining those opportunities. And if anyone has different experiences, please feel free to comment below. I do want this to be as comprehensive and accurate as possible. But in my experience, if you're looking for solo or full-time ensemble opportunities, that really does need to be done through management. And realistically, the most feasible way to get management is through the competition circuit. I'm not saying there are no exceptions to that, but what I probably would say is if you are looking to start a career like that and you don't have an agent or management, I wouldn't sit around waiting for it to happen. I think you probably will need to do competitions in order for that to come about. Um, so let me mention a few what I think are misconceptions in whole or in part about the competition circuit. Um, the first was always the most concerning to me, or at least in principle, which is that competitions reduce music to mere sport. It takes the artistry out of it and reduces it to basically a foot race where someone clocks in here and someone clocks in here and someone clocks in there. Um, I don't I don't think that's entirely true. We can reduce it to that in our minds if you go into a competition with that kind of mindset, but the people who adjudicate these competitions are great musicians in their own right, and they know that artistry is not a one dimensional thing. Um, they know that it's very subjective, and so I think the participants should know that as well, and know that the jury know that. The agents and managers who attend competitions and who might hear you perform there, they know that as well. Um, so yes, it is possible to allow the whole setup of a competition and the whole language of competition to make us think of it in simplistic terms like a foot race, but you don't have to, right? And the people who are involved, the people who are calling the shots and running the competitions, I in my experience, I sense that they don't think about it that way either. Um, so really, the most healthy way to think of a competition is that you are going there to put forward what you have to offer, right? And if that matches what the jury's looking for, great. Perhaps what an artist, manager, or agent is looking for might not match what the jury's looking for. Sometimes people who get taken on by a particular manager aren't necessarily the top prize winners, right? It's subjective, and we don't have to let the language of competition fool us into thinking that it's not. Really, it may be a better way to just put it is audition. You're going there to offer what you have to give, to see if it matches what an agent or manager is looking for. And I think it's a much more healthy way to approach the whole thing. A second misconception is that, or I should say, this is a potential misconception. It's a little There's a little more gray area in this one, that doing competitions can compromise your integrity as an artist by even unconsciously pressuring you to feel like you have to capitulate to what you think the judges want to hear. And again, there's some danger in that, in that one can allow oneself to only play to the judges. I think, funnily, that that's not what the judges are looking for. I think they are looking for distinct artistic personalities. Um, that said, there is also conventional wisdom about what one does or doesn't do in a competition. You might say, don't do that glissando there. You may feel it, but that's not the style that the judges are probably going to be looking for. And of course, it's even more that way in, say, an orchestra audition. I do think that it is possible to make those sorts of adjustments if you are advised to do so, without sacrificing your artistic voice. I think it's possible to work within whatever constraints you're given and still make your voice come out. And I think that's Goethe made the comment that the master shows himself in chains, meaning that when you're very constrained, that mastery in art is when you have constraints placed upon you and you can still bring out your artistic voice. And that's one thing that people marvel at in someone like Bach. Rigorous compositional structures, but it never feels robotically derived. It always feels like Bach. You always feel this very strong musical presence that is, the artistic presence of Bach in it. And I think that's something that has been a mark of his artistry. And so I think that can encourage us that, yes, we can make accommodations where we need to, and not be afraid that it must compromise our voice. Another a more outright misconception is that doing a competition and not getting first place is going to ruin your career. That is emphatically not true. Um, Many of the greatest violinists who have done competitions didn't always get first place. I mean, you look at people like David Oistrakh, Gidon Kremer, did not always get first place, and that's okay. That's nothing against them, nothing against the greatness of their artistry. Um, it's a subjective field, and we kid ourselves if we don't recognize that. But apart from those historical examples, you can say, well, yes, they were very great artists and they made up for it. But really, the way I see the competition scene working is not in terms of negative credit. Not like you go to a competition and however far you are from first place, that's how badly you've shot yourself in the foot. Really, I think it's more of a cumulative showing in the competition circuit. So if you do some competitions, you may not advance far, but maybe some people notice you that you're starting out, and they say, oh, that's just, it's in there. They notice, and then you go down the road, you just consistently show strongly, and then you get recognized by this jury and that jury, and you get a third prize here and a fifth prize here. And the people who are kind of watching your career through these competitions see you performing consistently well, and they start to notice your artistic voice, and they say, yeah, that's someone we'd like to take on, and that's how careers are born. So I think it's we need to realize that that's how it works. You shouldn't go into a competition dreading that you're not going to get first place, because that's not how the merit system of a competition works. If you go in and you get any sort of jury recognition, that's a plus, not a minus, right? And it's a huge achievement just to get into an international competition. So think of it in those terms. Think of you're putting yourself out there, and each whether you get a fifth prize here, audience recognition prize here, jury recognition prize here, those are all little pluses. It's not minuses in terms of how far you've gotten from whatever they decided first place is, right? I think that's very important to keep in mind. Also very good for your sanity when you're on the competition circuit. And a fourth misconception arising from all of this is I have to be the best. That can just be a matter of pride that we need to, frankly, get over. I mean, even the greatest of violinists, someone even like Jascha Heifetz, there were other artists that he reportedly, in some sense, felt, I don't know if threatened by is the right phrase, but I mean, he felt like they were his rivals. And that's Heifetz, right? We are always going to be surrounded by formidable artistic personalities if we're moving in those circles, or if we just have eyes to see that, if we can let ourselves recognize the merits of our peers. And I think a much healthier attitude than feeling threatened is to be happy for what they have to offer. Recognize that everyone, as I've said elsewhere, everyone has something unique to offer, um, and be happy for what they have to offer. Be happy for what you have to offer, and embrace all of that. And I think that if you approach competitions in that spirit, it will be a much more humane and a much more artistic affair. It's many young people coming together and showing their wares, and then agents deciding what matches what they are looking for, and that's all. But it really is a necessary step if you're looking to get management, and management is really a necessary step if you're looking for that full-time solo career or full-time ensemble career. One last thing to mention is that competition success is really very transferable to other areas. If you're looking, say, to be considered for a leadership position in a major orchestra, competition success can really get you considered for that. Also, in the area of conservatory or high-end university teaching, competition success carries a lot of weight. The conventional wisdom is for higher ed, um, the DMA can carry carry some essential weight, and I do recommend a DMA if collegiate teaching is on your radar now or in the future. And I may make a separate little video about that if I have some time soon. Um, but at the same time, especially for conservatory or conservatory level programs, competition success can be at least as strong a credential. And in fact, many very high end universities and conservatories um, don't don't require a DMA and might even look more favorably on competition success. So that's only to say, if you're in a position where you're the kind of person who thinks, yeah, I might consider doing competitions, but maybe you don't like the idea of being a full time soloist and just having to be on the road all the time. It may still be worth your while. I would say don't not consider competitions purely for that reason. If you do some competitions and get some recognition, that can help you in other areas too. If you're looking for a good orchestra position or a good teaching position in tertiary education, um, competition recognition can transfer to those areas as well. So I hope those are some helpful things to consider, um, especially for aspiring violinists out there, considering whether this might be something that you would be well advised to do in the future. So as always, thanks for watching.